Welcome, dear listener, or perhaps fellow traveler in time. You've just tuned into another episode of Boring History for Sleep, a quiet place for those seeking soft-spoken history, slow storytelling, and gentle ambient sounds to help calm the mind. Whether you're a long-time follower of this boring history channel, or just someone who stumbled upon a boring story to fall asleep to, I'm glad you're here. Let me ask you something. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you tucked in bed under cozy blankets? Sitting by a window as the evening quiets? Maybe you're lying back, eyes closed, searching for a history sleep story to let your thoughts drift away? Wherever you are, you're welcome. Take a deep breath in and out. There's no rush now. This isn't a fast-paced lecture. It isn't a thrilling tale of war or revolution. It's just a simple, soft-spoken history documentary. Something quiet, something still, something that might help you ease into rest. You're about to join us on a calming walk through time, not into the lives of kings or conquerors, but into the relaxing history of those who lived in the shadows of chandeliers and beneath grand staircases. Tonight, we descend the servant stairs of a Victorian manor house. We'll wander gently through the world of the butler, the scullery maid, the cook, and the footman. Their names weren't etched in stone, but their footsteps were. Tread into every hallway, every slate tile, every quiet room where the fire still smolders after midnight. It was a world of rhythm and ritual, of polished silver and folded linen, a world of care without applause. And if you're like many of our listeners, those who enjoy falling asleep to boring history or seeking calm bedtime storytelling with just enough intrigue to keep you company as you drift, then you've come to the right place. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, boring history to fall asleep, soothing narration, and gentle pacing, please consider tapping like or subscribing to help more sleepy historians like you find their way here. And now, take another slow breath. Imagine the soft ticking of a long-case clock, the warm flicker of candlelight against wood-paneled walls, and a quiet house that sleeps, but never entirely sleeps. Let's begin our journey below stairs. Imagine the morning, not your morning. This one begins much earlier, in darkness. A chill clings to the stone walls. You stir beneath a scratchy wool blanket in a narrow servant's bed. There's no fire lit for warmth, just silence, the occasional creak of old wood, and the slow awareness that the day has already begun. Your name could be Mary or Thomas or Ellen. You might be a scullery maid, a footman, or the under-housemaid. But titles don't matter much here. What matters is a rhythm, silent, strict, unchanging. Your first duty? Ashes, without a word. You dress quickly, your shoes already laid out. You descend the narrow servant staircase, careful not to wake the housekeeper. At the bottom, the tools await you: a heavy iron bucket, a short-handled broom, and blackened gloves stiff from yesterday's work. The drawing room is quiet now. Last night, it flickered with firelight and laughter. This morning, it's cold. The hearth is filled with gray ash. You kneel on the rug and begin to clean. Carefully, quietly. You're not to be seen, not to be heard. The room must look untouched, except for the perfectly remade fire, ready for when the family rises. You move from room to room, collecting ash, cleaning brass grates, and polishing until your arms ache. The morning mist still hangs outside, the windows fogged and damp. Down in the scullery, another girl is already at work, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing last night's pans. Copper, blackened with grease. The water is near boiling, steam curling up into dim rafters. The room smells of soap, onions, and the lingering trace of beef dripping. And then, sharply, softly, the bell rings. The kitchen springs to life. The cook appears without fanfare, her apron tied with a practiced tug. She doesn't need to shout. Her presence alone straightens backs and sharpens movements. 2 eggs soft-boiled, she says flatly. Tea, toast, marmalade. You don't speak. You just move. You already know where everything is. The rhythm, after all, does not change. Now the house begins to wake. You've already lit fires in 5 rooms and polished brass knobs in 2 halls. By 7:30, trays are ready. Each one is a silent testament to precision. Egg cups, warm napkins, gently steeped tea. A young footman climbs the stairs, balancing silver and porcelain. You wait in the shadows. Your work isn't to be noticed, it's to be done. The laundry cellar beckons next. You carry piles of sheets, the fabric still holding the scent of upstairs perfumes. The air down here is thick, hot, damp, and humming with the sound of boiling vats. The washerwomen stand over their tubs, arms red with lye, humming low lullabies to pass the time. You rinse, scrub, fold, and press. There is no end to it. At midday, there's a break, of sorts. The servants gather for lunch, seated at a long table in the servant hall. No silverware gleams here, no crystal glasses, just wooden benches, chip plates, and yesterday's bread. A stew simmers gently on the stove. There is laughter, sometimes. Soft jokes, careful glances. But conversation is cautious. The walls have ears. So you eat quickly. You return to work. Silver must be polished. Boots aligned. Letters delivered. Water carried. Bells answered. And when the day finally darkens, your body aching, you clean the last dish and hang your apron. The fire you lit that morning is just dying now. But you don't sit to watch it. You climb the servant stairs again. And sleep is your only luxury. Imagine yourself as a young boy again, perhaps 12 or 13, with nervous hands and eyes that linger too long on polished shoes. It is your first day in service. You are not a footman. You are not even a hall boy. You are the boot boy, the lowest of the low. Your tasks are simple, but endless. You scrub shoes until your fingers ache. You carry coal, fetch water, and polish every bit of brass in the servants' corridor, whether it's been touched or not. You rise before the others and sleep long after the hall has grown silent. You are invisible, yet expected. Your work must be perfect, and your name is rarely remembered. Still, you watch. You watch the older footmen prepare the table with silver, so reflective it casts candlelight like mirrors. You watch the valet press suits until they fold as if born of the cloth. And most of all, you watch the butler. Tall, always composed, his movements are minimal but precise. His voice is calm, rarely raised. He commands without effort, directs without shouting. The master trusts him, the housekeeper respects him, and the staff fear disappointing him. He wears black like a shadow stitched to the walls. Even his gloves are without crease. You think to yourself, could I ever become that? Perhaps, but not quickly. Over the years, you climb slowly. You become a hall boy, then second footman. You learn when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. You memorize the wine labels of family history, the order in which courses are served, down to the minute. You perfect the silent art of waiting behind a guest's left shoulder without being noticed. You clean silver until it gleams without reflection. You starch linen until it can stand on its own. And always you watch. In time, you are promoted again. First footman, then under butler. You now carry the keys to some of the cupboards. You're trusted to speak with tradesmen. You record the deliveries in careful script, tallying every shilling and pound. Still, there is one level left. The butler, not merely a title, but a transformation. It is not enough to clean. You must become an extension of the house itself. You must move like it breathes. Speak as if your words are folded in velvet. You are order incarnate. dignity without pride, cleanliness without fuss. The butler is the house. He knows what the master will ask before he asks it. He senses when a glass of port should appear and when it should vanish. He ensures that guests are greeted not with fanfare, but with precise timing, perfect temperature, and quiet grace. To become butler is to master invisibility while ensuring everything remains visible. Now you are the butler. You rise not with haste, but with certainty. Your waking hours earlier than the master's, but later than the scullery maids. You are greeted by silence, and in return, you answer with quiet efficiency. Your room is modest but dignified. A writing desk, a closet for your uniform, a small shelf of ledgers. Your coat hangs like a curtain, stiff pressed perfect. You begin with the day's planning, delivery logs, the staff schedule, the menu. Though the cook crafts it, you must approve it. The master's preferences are known to you like your own thoughts. You anticipate requests before they're spoken. You do not touch the silver. You inspect it. You do not scrub the floors. You glide over them, eyes tracing the edges of every polished plank, seeking anything out of place. Your greatest tool is your notebook, where entries are made in clean, looping script. 8:20 a.m., fireplace and library to be swept. 11:15 a.m., master's brandy moved to decanter. 1:45 p.m., prepare staff for Lady Hensley's visit. Every moment of the day is penciled and observed, not with suspicion, but with stewardship. Your voice is rarely heard in the dining room, but your presence is unmistakable. When the door opens, your posture alone brings a footman to attention. You know which guest prefers red wine, which one refuses veal, which lady dislikes drafty corners. You place the salt just slightly closer to the colonel, because he dislikes asking for it. These are not small things. They are the invisible weight of order. In your presence, no lamp flickers, no napkin lies crooked, no conversation is interrupted by the clink of a misplaced fork. At night, when the family retires and the last dish is dried, you record the day's summary, a quiet meditation of ink and candlelight. And as the house sleeps, so do you, lightly, because at any moment a knock may come. The master's horse may go lame, the pipes may burst, a guest may fall ill, and they will not call for the cook or the valet or the housekeeper. They will call for you, the butler, not a servant, not quite, but the silent soul of the house. Life below stairs was defined by routine, but never entirely without mystery. In a house as old as this, stone laid before the railways, bricks set before electric light, there were stories. And while the masters dismissed them with a tired smile, the servants remembered because they saw the corners. They walked the halls alone at night. They heard what others didn't. There were rules, spoken and unspoken. Some were practical, some were peculiar, but all were followed. You never swept after sunset, lest you sweep away luck. You never placed 3 candles on a table, 2 or 4, but never 3. It meant death. No one questioned why. You knocked before entering an empty room, not for privacy, but to give any spirits inside a chance to leave. You avoided the second stair from the top of the east wing. It creaked, yes, but also listened, some said. No one tested that theory twice. Imagine now a kitchen at twilight. The last meal is over. The oven slowly cools. The staff begins to drift to their evening chores. But the scullery maid lingers a moment. She tucks a small piece of iron, a horseshoe, black with age, behind the water barrel. Not because she was told, because the girl before her did the same. And the one before that, protection. From what? It was never quite explained. The housekeeper, a stern woman with graying hair always in tight bun, carries a vial of rosemary pinned beneath her dress. She says it's for the smell. But once, someone found a folded bit of paper in her drawer. A charm, perhaps a prayer, perhaps both. Even the butler, silent and rational, avoids one cupboard beneath the stairs. He says it's due to drafts. But he never asks others to open it either. Servants whisper the blue room. Third door on the left, second floor. Lady Agatha's room, long empty since her fever. They said she sometimes appeared in mirrors. Not to frighten, but to be seen. No one cleaned that room after sunset. The sheets were always pressed in morning light. And when the fire went out, on its own, no one questioned it. You see, service was about control, predictability, order. But superstition offered explanation for what order could not contain. The maids prayed quietly before polishing the looking glasses. The footmen turned their collars 3 times when the wind howled. The night porter, gruff and pragmatic, still placed breadcrumbs by the cellar door every Thursday night, and no one moved them. Every house has its own language, not of words, but of gestures, of keys, of knocks. In the grand Victorian manor, these signals ruled all things. The family may speak plainly upstairs, but the house spoke through taps, tones, and subtle movements. The bell system, long polished cords with brass tags, was a house's nervous system. A single chime meant tea in the drawing room. 2 short rings might mean the lady wanted her shawl fetched. A frantic rattle, a child ill in the nursery. Everyone knew their bell, and when it rang, they moved, not with haste, but with precision. Then there were the locks. The butler's pantry was locked at all times, not for secrecy, but for certainty. Inside, rows of silver glinted like museum pieces. The keys hung from the butler's chain, not heavy, but symbolic, each one a note in the music of control. The housekeeper too had keys, though fewer and older. They unlocked linen closets, the attic, the china cabinets. She counted napkins like one counts coins. There were no accidents. Every fold had memory. Then came the rituals, not spiritual ones, but domestic devotions. The way the silver was placed on the table. A precise angle. The knife's edge never turned outward. The folding of napkins, never triangular, always square. Candles lit from left to right, never the reverse. Boots shined in silence. Saws placed to face the doorway. Even missteps had meaning. A tea tray with a handle facing left instead of right. It was a message, not one you said aloud, but one that told the staff that something was off. There were also old traditions the masters barely noticed anymore, like chalk marks inside the larder, like salt sprinkled at the entrance during storms, like dried lavender tucked in curtain hems, never spoken of, each act a whisper. A quiet language passed from servant to servant, like lullabies pass in sleep. These weren't rules. They were rights. And the manor, long-lived, quiet, and always watching, demanded in return for its calm. Picture a single house, tall and grand, its stones warmed by sun in the morning, cool under moonlight. Now imagine it split not by walls, but by silence. Above, carpets muffled the footfalls of the elite. Below, flagstones echoed with the movements of the many. This was the reality of Victorian service. 2 worlds, 1 roof. The upstairs was a theater of gentility. Breakfast was served on porcelain, not because of hunger, but because of habit. Conversations drifted like mist, touching on nothing too real. There were outings, letters, formal luncheons, and the occasional fainting spell, all carried out in a kind of elegant choreography. The downstairs was a machinery that kept it all alive. Here, time was measured not in hours, but in bells, chores, and cups of weak tea sipped standing between tasks. The family upstairs might never learn a footman's name. The servants knew everything. Which room creaked when the lady of the house snuck back from a late-night carriage ride? Which drawer the master locked when he thought no one saw? Which guest left without finishing their wine? And what that meant for the next invitation? You see, service required observation, not for gossip, but for survival. And yet, despite the intimacy of knowledge, distance remained. Even when walking past a family in a hallway, servants would lower their gaze. A nod, not a smile. Silence, not greeting. Always invisible, always present. Still, there were moments when the two worlds brushed fingers, softly and never for long. Perhaps the young kitchen maid glimpsed the air, just returned from university. He nodded to her once, almost imperceptibly. Perhaps the butler, after 20 years of loyal service, received a signed photograph, framed, even, a gesture so modest yet so rare it would be kept on his desk for the rest of his life. But such moments were exceptions. The rule was clear. They lived in the same house, but not the same world. There were even physical divisions, staircases unseen by the guests, corridors dimly lit and narrow, meant only for service. The grand staircase curved like a ribbon in the foyer, wide enough for four to descend side by side. The servant stairs were steep, narrow, and cold. In winter, the nursery upstairs had a blazing fire. The scullery girl below had a single cracked stove. And yet, she would rise earlier than all others to heat water for baths she would never take. The elite rarely gave thought to the lives below. And yet, they depended on them utterly. Because no matter how refined the drawing room, it was held together by rough hands, careful eyes, and feet that never stopped moving. But time has its own way of whispering change. By the late 19th century, the world outside the manor was growing louder. Railways, factories, gaslight in the streets. The pace of life was shifting. Even within the great country houses, you could feel it. Like a subtle draft behind a closed door, the strict codes of service began to loosen. Young men who once dreamed of being footmen now dreamed of wages in the city. Maids who used to spend decades in one house began leaving after a year or two. There were whispers of votes, of rights, of choice. And then came the war. The First World War cracked the world in half. Many houses lost sons. Some lost their heirs. And many servants never returned from the trenches. In the silence that followed, something else changed. The manor houses were never quite the same. Too many empty rooms. Too much memory in the walls. The great chain of service began to unravel. The butler retired, but no one replaced him. The dining room was used only on holidays. The bells went silent. Some houses became schools. Others, hotels. A few still remained, preserved like pressed flowers in glass. But the world they represented, of invisible labor, silent grace, and dignified obedience, is nearly gone. And yet, when you walk into one of these houses today, if you listen closely, you might still hear it. The faint creak of a servant's stair. The soft clink of porcelain behind a closed door. A whisper long vanished, saying, "Dinner is served." And somewhere, in a dusty drawer, a silver key rests, waiting. And now, dear listener, the house grows still. The boots are cleaned and placed by the hearth. The lamps are snuffed, one by one. The linen is folded, and the silver has been tucked back into its velvet-lined drawers. Somewhere above, a floorboard creaks gently, not an alarm, but as if the house itself were stretching after a long day. You've traveled quietly through its hidden passages. You've listened for bells, felt the warmth of cold fires, and followed the silent footsteps of 100 lives lived behind the curtain. These were not kings or poets, not explorers or generals, but their rhythm, their devotion, their quiet pride was no less worthy of remembrance. In every folded napkin, every polished brass rail, every unspoken moment behind a closing door, there lived a kind of poetry. Not loud, never proud, but deeply human. So now, as the imagined manor fades into moonlight, you may release your thoughts. Let them soften, drift, and disappear like steam from an iron kettle. You are safe here, quiet here. There are no bells left to answer tonight, no boots to shine, no linen to press, no silver to count, only the hush of the past and the stillness of the present. Breathe in one last time, deeply, and let the quiet of this old house guide you toward restful sleep. Good night.